Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates, with your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of Jennifer's story. Today, we'll continue talking about her suspicions about vaccines and her son's autism and dealing with COVID. We'll laugh as we compare notes as moms of kids with autism and talk about eloping, sleep issues, and getting a service dog. Come hang out with us.
I trusted blindly because in my mind, a doctor or nurse would never give my child anything that could potentially harm them. What do you mean? Like, now though, I've learned, and I have personally spoken to doctors and nurses who have told me they don't even learn about med or nursing school. They learn the schedule and they learn how to administer. They don't learn anything about side effects or ingredients.
Right.
Nothing. Nothing.
Right. They talked about that in the video series that I watched as
Yep.
well. Same thing. It's a one day class in medical school. They really don't know much about it.
And it's basically teaching you the schedule and how to administer. So, for a long time, I was so angry, so angry. And I still am. I don't bring my son to the doctor. I mean, he has a pediatrician, so she can sign his paperwork once a year for the school. But I don't bring him to the pediatrician. If he's sick, like he was sick last year with the flu. And I kept him home for 3 days, and my husband was like, you better take him to the doctor or I'm taking him to the hospital. So I did, of course, but I don't trust them. I don't trust them at all. And so do I know exactly which harmed him? No, but I do know that it was around 18 months old, and at 18 months old he gets the MMR, which is measles, mumps, and rubella. And the MMR is shown, and it says it right in the to cause, potentially can cause, I don't know the exact verbiage, but encephalitis. Encephalitis is swelling of the brain. So, there are so many ingredients in these things that are just complete poison, like complete poison. And I could list them for you. Formaldehyde, polysorbate 80. The ingredients is MRC5. That's the ingredients in the MRC-5, and that is aborted fetal tissue. And I could go on and on, but it's basically poison. Is it good for some? Sure, I guess so. I maybe I don't know. But eczema, allergies, food allergies, behavioral issues, all of these things that our kids are sick. Like not even kids with autism, just kids in general nowadays are sick. The eczema, the colic, the seasonal issues, the food allergies, the ADHD, the ADD, the autism.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. When I was in school, you could, whatever, eat anything. And now it seems like every single kid has some type of a food allergy or something. Like you can't bring a peanut butter to school anymore. You can't bring nuts. You can't bring this, you can't do that because everybody's got something. I could run off a whole list of kids that have diabetes, kids that they have to give themselves shots and stuff. I mean, it's insane. And somebody had just asked me recently, they're like, and why is there so much autism in New Jersey? I'm like, I don't know. They said, has anyone done a study on this?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, why do you think it's more in New Jersey than anywhere else? I have no idea.
I don't know either. And I've heard people, I don't know. And I
there's theories.
Right. And who knows, who we'll never know. But again, we know what happened for our son, and he basically, it was like a light switch went off.
Like something shut off. Yeah. Okay. But you didn't, because one of the other moms that I talked to, she said that right after her kid got his vaccine, had a fever, He was deathly sick for like 5 days, and then finally when he came out of it, it was like nobody was home.
Yep.
So there was no like actually he didn't like come home and that night he got a fever or anything like that.
Well, so, and I didn't even realize this or think about this, but we're now working with a doctor. He's based out of Las Vegas. He's a biomedical doctor, which when I first heard about what they were, I'm like, oh my God, that's so weird. But I looked into it a little more. And so we do telehealth visits with him. He's in Las Vegas. And so biomedicine deals with root cause. So we're not treating symptoms, we're treating root cause. Most of our kids with autism, a lot of them have GI and gut issues.
Right.
So we do testing on the gut and the blood and saliva and urine and stool and all of these things to get an overall comprehensive picture of him and what he needs.
Right.
And
do you have any results for that yet?
Yeah. We got them. And a lot of it is diet, a lot of it is supplements, a lot of it it's detox, it's it's a lot. But
does it help, do you think? Do you see any difference?
We just started, but I say all that to say that when I was going over the history with him, with that doctor in Las Vegas, I was telling him about when Gio was 2 weeks old and had an extremely high fever, and we had to take him to the hospital. He was in the PICU for a week. They did a spinal tap on him, all of these things. And I'm like, oh my God, he had this like insanely high, I forget what it was, like almost 105 or something crazy like that.
Right.
At 2 weeks old. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe he was injured at like 2 weeks old or like, right after birth or whatever. Because you get to the hospital right when you're born. So, I don't know. Again, I don't know. Maybe it was the 2 weeks and it just like stayed in him all those months and then happened at 18 months.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how the physiology of the body, works. But I do know that right after 18 months old is when he completely was like, whoosh. And, my husband and I will look at videos of him from before that, and we'll like bawl our eyes out crying because it's a totally different child. Totally. So.
Do you try to not give him gluten and dairy?
Yeah, so that's the beginning of it is no gluten. It's so much trial and error. But yes, no gluten, no dairy. And so that's what we're trying now initially. It's really hard for me because I have my own issues with food. So when I'm like really on my food game and like really eating good, the whole family is. But when I fall off, which is often, I end up, like he had pizza this afternoon for lunch. So like, you know what I mean? Like, I figure like I do what I can when I can, and like, hopefully at some point my pain will become great enough that I'll make a change and stick with it. Like I'll be so sick of seeing him banging his head into the wall or so sick of him not being able to talk to me that I'm going to say, okay, Jennifer, you're sticking with the diet and there's no cheating. There's no giving him pizza. Like he can scream and yell and cry for pizza, but no, you're not getting it. I do what I can. I'm certainly not at all perfect. And like I said, I have my own like deep rooted issues with food, unfortunately. So
but you're a cancer survivor as well. I mean, I've heard, sugar feeds cancer, and you're supposed to, there's all these things that are good for you to eat and not eat and all that. So.
Yeah. I need to make better choices for myself and for Gio, 100%, and my boys and my husband. My husband has heart issues. Like he shouldn't be eating pizza either.
It's hard because, and I've mentioned this before, because I did a video series of my son, so everybody's going to stick in their 2 cents, and he loved carbs. I mean, he lived on carbs, my son, and people are like, he shouldn't be eating that and blah 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 blah. I'm like, that's all he'll eat. I mean, when he was I don't remember how old, 2 years old or so. All he ate was pretzels and apple juice for 6 months. That's
Yep.
just what they, and then they're like, well, of course, because he's addicted to it. I'm like, no, it's because that's all he'll eat. You
Yeah.
don't understand. He
Don't
will
get
starve.
Yeah.
He
they
will
don't-
starve. It's not, it's unless you live through it, people don't understand. They
Exactly.
just don't. They're great armchair quarterbacks,
Right.
at telling you how to raise your child when they don't have kids, let alone a kid with autism. So they
Autism,
don't,
right.
it's like, just keep your opinion to yourself.
Yeah.
So
My husband works his butt off for our family. He's very busy with work. So I'm Gio's main caregiver,
sure.
and I do not let him ride any sort of bus to and from school. So
Well, that was my other question. With COVID, is he in school? No.
he is, thank God.
Oh, okay.
He is in school. However,
They're not trying to do Zoom calls for him, are they?
so they were initially when all the schools were closed. It was Zoom. It was a shit show. Oh, am I allowed to say that?
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's been my favorite phrase lately. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh God, you're recording this, and I
That's
just
right. I can bleep it.
yeah. So I mean, come on. He's 5, first of all, and second of all, he has autism. He's not going to sit and attend to a screen for 20 minutes, half an hour. He did though. Some days he tried. He's okay for a few minutes, but after that, he's like Zoom and he's zooming around.
Of course.
So they did end up. He does get ESY, so he has the extended school year. Thank God. So he did go back in the summer for his ESY. It was an abbreviated schedule. And then they started school also on abbreviated schedule in September. So it's 3 days 1 week and then 4 days the next week. So it goes 3, 4, 3, 4. But
why are they doing that? Are they alternating the amount of kids that come on certain days?
Yep.
Okay.
And it's half days, so they're done at like 1. However, we did just get notice that starting in March, it'll be full days.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And do they expect him to wear a mask?
So, no, a lot of the kids there, even the older ones, won't wear any masks.
Yeah. That's a joke. Trying to get autistic kids to wear a mask is a joke. That's why I asked. My other son, he works at a school for autistic kids, and the staff wears a mask, but the kids don't.
Yeah, I mean, if your child will wear a mask,
great.
They're great with that, right? And the only thing that they asked was that, like, let us just start to try to work with him on the mask wearing. Right. So I think they're like having it on the table next to him for right now, and then just having it be near him, and they're fine with that. Yeah. So I had a woman at Trader Joe's scream into his face for not wearing a mask, and they called they were about to call the police on me because I lost my mind on the woman. And it's crazy too, because the mask that I wear has like
somebody that works at Trader Joe's or just a customer?
Customer. Yeah, a customer. But the mask that I wear when I'm with him always it has a huge autism ribbon on it. Mm-hmm. It's like a black mask with a huge autism ribbon, and she still decided to scream into his face for not wearing a mask. That's how crazy. That's how much the fear is, though. So
yeah,
I just have to pray for her, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I have another friend that she's very
anti-mask.
Yeah, and very vocal and whatever. And she's like, her son has Down syndrome and autism. And she's like, he doesn't need to wear a mask. He has a medical exemption. And because of HIPAA laws, I don't need to explain to anybody why he doesn't have to wear a mask. And it's none of anybody's business. And they never wear a mask in any store that they ever go to. And she said she's never been stopped and nobody said anything. However, the difference is when a kid has Down syndrome, it's very obvious that they have a disability, where that's harder with kids with autism because you can't There's no physical attributes that tell you that there's something wrong. And especially when they're little and they're so cute, they're adorable. And then they throw themselves on the ground and they scream and have fits and stuff. And people think you're a terrible parent and you just have a spoiled child. You know, they just have no clue what's going on.
Yeah.
So like they have to wear a giant t-shirt that says, I have autism, leave me alone.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's why I have the mask. Like I still wear a mask. And you know, I could understand if I wasn't in a mask and he wasn't in a mask. Maybe I'm just like one
I
of the,
know, but it's not her business to yell at your child.
listen,
That's crossing the line.
I called my husband and I was like, I'm in Shrewsbury. If I get arrested, I will be at the Shrewsbury Police Department. I did.
I think every mother would be the same. Like,
called my husband and I told him, if I get arrested, this is where I am, because I lost my mind on the woman. I lost my mind.
Right.
It wasn't my finest moment, but
that's funny.
Yeah.
Does he sleep okay?
So
how did I know? Right? Does he?
The sleeping and the eating are the two. So the sleep thing has gotten better, but only because he's on medication for sleep, which was a really difficult decision for me.
Does he take clonidine? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I will, and I've been telling a lot of moms this on their autism pages. I never wanted to put my son on any kind of medications, and I just felt, and I wasn't going to do it to make my life easier. You know, I just felt like, no, I can deal with this. And it wasn't, except my husband was the one that like, he's got to sleep. And we put him on the clonidine because my husband's like, he's got to take something. Like, I can't live like this anymore.
Yeah.
But when he was 17, he had his first seizure, and we ended up putting him on seizure meds. And he was so hyper and so aggressive, and he was breaking stuff in our house, and he was attacking my husband and all this. And I still wouldn't medicate him.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't sleep. It was awful. He was so hyper and he was so bad, but I still wouldn't medicate him. And then when he had the seizure, we put him on seizure meds because these were grand mal seizures. I mean, we had to medicate him for that.
Yeah.
And he calmed down. His digestive issues stopped. He had normal, you know, where before he had constant diarrhea and vomiting and all kinds of issues. All that stopped. He calmed down. He wasn't hyper anymore. He wasn't aggressive anymore. He stopped breaking things. Like he became a calm, happy kid.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, why the heck didn't I do this 10 years ago? You know, but I just didn't believe in it, you know? And then I realized, oh, okay, now I was stupid. But people tell you these stories about, and now I remember why, because I watched this old video, because one doctor he put him on Prozac, and it was horrible. It was such a disaster. I said, no, we're not doing this anymore. I don't want my kid to be a guinea pig. And people would tell you all these stories and saying, oh, they have to find the perfect cocktail. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that to him. I'm not messing around with all these different meds, because who knows what it's doing to him, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, you know what? You just have to go with your gut about stuff and do what you think is right for your kid.
It was a quality of life issue. Again, like I don't work. So like if I wanted to just veg out on the couch as much as I can, for an hour here and there, like I can, if I don't get enough sleep. But for him, for Gio, it was becoming a quality of life issue, sleeping an hour or two a night, because his self-injurious behaviors were getting worse, and all of it was just worse. So it was a decision that it was hard, but it was necessary. And even now, you know, a lot, like you're saying, like the destruction and the aggressive and all that, like I'm starting to deal with that now. And his neurologist is the one that prescribes his medication, put Risperdal,
yeah,
my radar. But you know, my husband says that boys can grow breasts and there's all this stuff. And
but Robbie was on that. He didn't have any side effects from it. The only, I think, weight gain is I
Yeah.
think they have it. They're hungrier. That's all,
Right.
and they can get weight gain. But I think he gained a few pounds, but not a lot.
Yeah.
But
So
my son, he was too skinny to begin with. So
yeah.
they said he used to jump on the trampoline and his pants would fall off
We have
because
the
he was too skinny.
trampoline is our lifesaver. This is Gio's favorite thing is the trampoline. We invested in a really nice trampoline because we went through like 4 or 5 of them from Amazon in like 2 years.
Mm.
So we took the plunge and spent a pretty decent amount of money on a really good trampoline.
Yeah. Well, the pressure is good for him.
It's unbelievable. He's on it 12 months out of the year. He's on it if it's raining. Like the only reason he hasn't been on it this last week is because the snow will not melt.
Yes.
So it's just on it.
Yeah.
But it's such a lifesaver.
Yeah. So I wrote a children's book series. It's coming out probably in a week. But one of the stories in there, there's a few pages where he's jumping on the trampoline and he jumps with his siblings. But if it would rain at night, and I'd hear this noise outside. I'd hear this boing, boing, boing. I was like, what? And I look outside, and he ran outside. He's jumping on the trampoline in the rain.
Yeah.
And that's one of my stories.
Well, Gio's an eloper, so so we have special locks on all of our doors and windows, and we're actually working with a service dog agency based out of New York. They're called Blue Path Service Dogs, and they train dogs specifically for children with autism who are elopers.
Okay, perfect.
So we've been on their list for over a year. They'll be at our house for our second in-home interview with them on March 2nd. It's like 17 days away.
And I was going to say, is he okay with dogs? Because Robbie was afraid of them. We couldn't. After the police picked him up for like the 10th time, they're like, you should really get a dog. I'm like, yeah, but he's afraid of them.
So he does not like dogs that are like when the dog sees him, like is really jumpy and hyper and all over the place and trying to jump on him and wagging the tail.
Yes.
Not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
When the service dog people came to interview us the first time, they brought a dog with them to see how he would respond to the dog. And obviously the dog is super highly trained.
Yes, I was going to say, hopefully they're trained to not do that.
Yeah, like literally the dog stayed right by the woman. It didn't wag its tail. It didn't move. It didn't nothing. It just sat there like, and then she walked into our living room with the dog, and the dog laid down right by her feet, and that's it. Didn't hardly even paid attention to Gio, and Gio he was like touching it with his feet and with and he loved the thing. Loved it.
Wow.
So we're so excited because not just the elopement issue, but socialization. I mean, if you're out and you see somebody with a service dog in Target, let's say, a lot of times you'll go up and be like, oh my goodness, the service dog, how cool. So hopefully it'll give him some sort of social interaction and teach him some sort of social skills as he gets older. And then a friend for life. It's just, I'm so excited. March 2nd.
They're really expensive, those service dogs, aren't they?
So this agency is a nonprofit, and the dogs that they do train, they're in intensive training for like 2 years, and they're highly bred. They're like this bred from like whatever bloodlines, the total cost of the dog with all the training and everything is about $40,000. Yeah. However, that's not our cost of the dog. We'll have to pay certain fees, as they call it. I think it's about $1,500.
Okay.
Which, is not a lot compared to the $40,000. But yeah, it's about $1,500. And
is that something that insurance helps with, or no? I'm just curious. I don't know anything about it. No.
So March 2nd, they'll be here. We've been working with him, and the school's been working with him as far as he'll have to hold the handle on the vest for the dog.
Right.
So I asked them to send me a vest to practice with, and they did. So I bought him this huge stuffed animal, and we put the vest on the stuffed animal
Oh, that's cute.
just to get him practice of holding the handle. So if he can hold the handle, or just do like hand over hand and hold the handle, like not having
Right.
a vision to it, they'll pair him with a dog.
Oh.
If he can't, then they push us out like 9 more months. So
Oh.
I'm really hoping.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You got to work on that handle, right?
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
17 more
Oh,
days
that's
till they're
interesting.
here. So I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, I'd love to know about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
because service dog is a whole different thing than just getting a dog. Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So, last question I always ask everybody is, if you were to have a meeting with a governor, senator, policymaker, somebody that can make change in the state of New Jersey.
Oh my goodness, this is such a loaded question because I feel like it's so much. So I did meet with a senator last year. I met with Senator Gopal, who is the senator of my district here, and you know, he was great. He was really open and receptive to hearing Gio's story. And
who initiated the meeting?
I did.
Okay, and what did you want to talk to him about?
So it was during the time where the whole thing with Trenton was going on, and they were trying to remove our religious exemptions as far as the vaccinations in school go. If they removed the religious exemption, then a lot of people would have to vaccinate their kids according to the schedule. I just kind of wanted to get his story, Gio's story, out there to anyone that would really listen. And so I made a post on Facebook, and I tagged Senator Gopal, and I have some mutual friends with Senator Gopal, and I think my one friend made like a phone call for me and kind of got me in there, but regardless, I still got the meeting with him. So I was really, really grateful, and he was open to listening. And, you know, the thing that vaccines aside, I would just say that there's a lot of things that I think about when I think about my son as he ages. Things from like police, the police forces being trained about children or teens or adults with autism, and how they act. How they act in a car, how they can possibly, you know, how you could see a 16 or 18-year-old child in a car strapped in, you know, with the cognitive ability of maybe a 2-year-old who could be flailing around or whatever. You know, I just think that the police need probably more training and exposure to children with autism, children, teenagers, and adults with autism. I think that oh my goodness,
that could be done easily with a trip to a school for kids with autism and just observe.
Yeah. I think that services for after 21, and you know, again, I'm not even there yet. I know you are, but I have heard that after 21, it's kind of like, okay, what do I do now? So maybe that. I also think that you know, times are crazy different now. Now that we have COVID, and I think that our kids really, really need to be in school. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that entails. I don't know, you know, I don't have all the answers, but I know that my son gets all of his therapies in school. I am not a therapist. I'm not a speech therapist. I'm not an ABA therapist. I'm not an occupational therapist. I'm his mom. You know, I can't sit on a Zoom with him. Like, he needs to be in his school. He needs to have his therapies. So I don't know what that looks like as far as COVID regulations, the Department of Health, like all of those things. but I feel like our kids need their school.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like education for our kids, but also education for the public, the people. Like I said about the police, I don't know why that just like sticks in my head for some reason. I think about, God forbid I'm pulled over and he's a little bit bigger and he's like freaking out in the back of the car for some reason or something. I don't know. And I mean, you hear these crazy stories about police shooting kids with somebody with autism because they were acting erratically. Well, that's how our kids
or they're running away and the police yells for them to stop and they don't stop because they don't understand what they're talking about, and then they shoot them.
Yeah,
like, come on.
Yeah.
When my son was in the group home, they didn't know how to handle him because they had never dealt with someone with autism before. So when he'd have a behavior, they'd call the police, and the police, I got there one day and they were taking my son out in handcuffs, and he's got the mental capacity of a 1-year-old, so, and to see him coming out in handcuffs, I wanted to go ballistic, and freak out, but then I'll end up in handcuffs, so have to calm yourself down. And they said, we're taking him to Trinitas Hospital, to the behavioral hospital. And I rode with them, and I asked the police officer, I said, do you have any training with working with people with autism? And he said, no, we don't. And I said, well, that's obvious, because you would never have put him in handcuffs.
I don't know if you're familiar with POAC, Parents of Autistic Children. They're on Facebook, and it's a group. I don't know if it's like a nonprofit or something, but the mom who started it, I believe has set up certain workshops and stuff with certain police departments and things of that sort to just educate them.
Yeah, there's a group, they're based out of Westfield, I think. I interviewed a place it's a bounce factory type of a place where my son had gone, and she had opened up the doors to have autistic kids come all the time. And she said she had this group come and train her entire staff on how to work with people with autism. And that's what they do. They go to facilities and they teach people and they train them and teach them about autism, how to work with them and whatever. So we're getting somewhere. There are people out there that are, trying to get it done. So
yeah, great.
So anyway, all right. We've been on here for quite a while. I don't want to keep you.
Okay.
But thank you so much for joining me today, taking time. I know your life is busy and crazy, but I appreciate you taking time with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And definitely reach out to me for anything, if you need any help with anything or any more information or anything at all. I'm happy.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to have a connection down the shore now.
Yeah,
I only know people from up here, so that's great. Okay. All right. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening and it helped you gain a new perspective. To see the video version of the show, go to our YouTube channel, Robbie and Me, Autism Reality. If you're interested in buying our book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, the link will be in our episode description, as well as my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like more content, please be sure to hit that like button, follow us, and don't forget to leave us a great review. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.